Greetings. This is Tariq X with National Network View. Tonight we will discuss what it's like moving to Africa with Nina Shabazz. And also we will be speaking on the recent violence against the Asian community with Amina Lei. We begin with our NNV anchor, Rosalind Parks, who spoke with Brian E. Muhammad about Ghana's recent step towards economic freedom by taking control of their exported goods, such as cocoa beans.
Now, do you believe that Ghana will be more prosperous by ending its exportation of raw materials and cocoa beans to other countries? How exactly will this help Ghana?
Well, it would help because it will force the Ghanaian people to value the raw material and begin to produce factories and manufacturing plants to turn these raw materials into usable products. This way, they can sell these usable products on the market as well. It won't be a situation where the Western world is buying raw material from out of the land for nothing and then turning it into something valuable and producing that and selling that to the world, including, again, back to Africa. So if we control the whole process from start to finish, then that puts us in an advantageous position.
Master herbalist, gardener, and health coach lady Venus Magical shared her thoughts about the farming stimulus and educated us on herbal gardening.
And what do you think can be done to protect current Black farmers from losing their land and help a new generation of Black farmers?
Well, the first thing is that we collectively as Black people have to come together to donate and support Black farmers. So we've got to show up to Black farmers markets. We've got to see what skills that we have that we can donate to Black farms, where we can show up and not expect pay, but just show up and be there for Black farmers, whether it's helping out in the fields or being there at the farmers markets as support systems. It's very important for us as a community to stand behind Black farmers. Yes, the stimulus package and bill is wonderful for us, but if we collectively as a community of Black people don't stand behind this bill, show up and support our farmers, we will be back in the same position that we've been in for since the 1920s, essentially.
We also spoke with Abdul Malik Muhammad about the benefits of fasting in his outreach group.
All right. The Fasting and Prayer, the Foundation to Success group, consists of Nation of Islam, Lost Found Christians, Hebrew Israelites, atheists, and non-denominational from North America and various other continents, including Africa. How did the group get so diverse?
People had it in their heart to look for God, and they needed some assistance, and they thought this would be a great avenue for us to double down on our prayers and to actually start fasting. It's easy to do it when you have a trainer. If you want to work out yourself and get your abs together, you're not going to do it as rigorous or as consistent as having a trainer. But they found us on social media, word of mouth. It was nothing. We didn't promote it that heavy. We just let each one teach one and each one reach one. And that's how we got to where we're at now.
We also spoke with Dr. Ava Muhammad on Tuesday on vaccinations.
Is vaccinations a part of the plot to depopulate the earth?
Absolutely. And I would refer us back again to the time and what must be done, where that Kissinger report is probed very deeply by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And I think what's so critical for us to consider is, why are European nations, why is the United States of America embedded in the continent of Africa trying to vaccinate our people? Why does Bill Gates, why is he accepted as an authority? People say, well, the minister should not be in vaccines, but Bill Gates is not in the medical or health field. And yet he and his wife are all over the media speaking on not only vaccinations, but on public policy and on human rights and which constitutional rights should be overridden in order for, in Bill Gates' statement, for the entire population of the planet Earth to be vaccinated. We are original people on this earth. Allah, God, gave us a complex, beautiful, profound organism called the human body. And it is designed, when it is working at optimum level, to defeat invaders in the forms of germs, which are virus and bacteria. And so why not follow the laws of nature that the original people follow? Why is the United States government, which is corporate owned, limiting us to vaccinations? That's what also arouses suspicion, or it should. Other nations around the earth are being very effective in controlling this virus, and they are employing the use of other therapies and treatments, such as interferon. There are doctors in this country, some of our doctors, who are making use of ivermectin. Why is it that the only thing you see and hear in the media in this country is the vaccination?
We also spoke with Dr. Ava about our stance for separation and the status of the movement.
Now, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said the greatest brainwashing was to take us away from knowing and appreciating the value and ownership of land. He advised us to put his program before the U.S. Congress.
Yes.
Have we put a program before Congress on separation? And if so, what is the status?
We have not officially put the program in front of the current body of lawmakers, and our intent is to do that. That program, of course, is on the back page of the Final Call newspaper, as it was on the back of Muhammad Speaks on each and every issue. But we are in the process of carrying out the things that we are demanding on that back page. We demand freedom, number one, justice, number two, equality, number three. And if we cannot obtain that, and we are obviously coming to the conclusion as a people, the one that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Minister Louis Farrakhan have already reached, and that is we cannot get along with these people in peace. And so we are moving rapidly toward that time. But I want to caution that we are not doing this because we need their permission. We are doing this because we are a law-abiding people, and we will follow laws as long as they do not conflict with our religion. So we do not have a problem with putting this in front of the Congress, but this demand for land will be met.
As mainstream media is flooding the masses with another horrific killing spree of the American Caucasian, it's like somewhat of a distraction to highlight the demand for justice of the demonic officer who murdered George Floyd. Here is what our recent guest, Doshan Farad, spoke about.
You can see they're angling to try to say, like, the number one leaders in this anti-Asian hate are the Black community, right? Why they're making that type of angle.
Well, this is the thing you have to understand. You know, we talk about Asians being scapegoated. We've spoken about, of course, Jews being scapegoated during the Holocaust and of course, here in America. But Black folks have been the number one scapegoats from both sides. We get this from Republicans, conservatives, as well as Democrats and liberals. Like, for example, when it comes to what's referred to as homophobia, transphobia, misogyny, sexism, I always say that that's a part of what I refer to as the anti-Black narrative.
Yes,
that
sir.
Always paints Black people in a negative light. Black people are anti-Semitic. Black people are anti-Asian. Black people are homophobic. Black men are misogynist. Black women are hard to get along with, materialistic, babies, mamas. That's what that's a part of. Anything negative is always given a Black face. Once again, this is what we have to deal with. Remember the doll test Who's the prettier doll? The light-skinned doll, the ugly doll, the dark doll, and we have to go back to basics, family. Basic 101. Devil's food Kate is what? Black. Angel's food Kate is white, etc., etc. We have to look with this is why this show, brother Willie, this network, it's very important for Black people, for us to write, for us to broadcast, for us to document our story from a Black perspective, because you could be white reporting and writing from a white perspective.
On Monday, Eric Muhammad talked about the anti-Asian movement in more detail.
What do you think is causing the uptick in these hate crimes being perpetrated against members of the Asian community?
Yes, brother, I concur with my brother Farad, because when you look at what Mr. Trump, his language, Chinese virus, Kung flu, the Honorable Mr. Farrakhan said, when attitude, when hardened, becomes beliefs, from beliefs we get laws. So we see that this is rooted in white supremacy. This is the way they think. This is their attitude. This is their belief system. And even though Chinese have their own areas, Chinatown, and they're separated, but they're still a part and being affected by this open enemy, right? So when you look at it, the Honorable Minister Farrakhan said that American foreign policy comes out of its domestic policies. So we see the issue that they have with China, the beef that's going on with China. And then now we see that they are affecting and have an effect on the Asians that are in this country. However, this has been going on. AAPI, which is the Asian American and Pacific Islanders community, said this has been going on since March of 2020. So why are we just now hearing about this? So the media also, beloved, put stuff in a cycle and spin it to create this news cycle. And then when somebody is Black is murdered, then they're going to come spin it and show that. And then we move away from this Asian situation that we're dealing with. Again, we just have to unite as good moral people.
On Sunday, on I Have a Testimony, we spoke with the hip-hop great Fat Joe. The show's weekly testimony features bearers of witness to the love, peace, truth, freedom, and justice of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Let's take a look at this clip.
You spoke about how the minister asked that people leave that meeting and make a song just talking about the hidden hand, which oftentimes causes a lot of these beefs. And you said out of everybody that was there, you did it, and we can go online and actually see the song, The Hidden Hand. So can you talk about that track and the relevance of that track then and even today?
Well, I've always been a man of my word. If the only thing I got is my word is bond. And so when the minister brought about peace, and he was explaining to us, like, look, don't fight each other. There's a hidden hand. He told all of us to make a track called Hidden Hand. And I was the only one who made the track called Hidden Hand. And I'm proud of it. And it was just talking about reality, talking about life, struggles in life and how we need to overcome it. And so I did what I said I would do.
To view more on this interview, visit nnvnews.com. A new member of our network, Robert Muhammad, spoke with medical doctor Akili Muhammad concerning U.S. government's depopulation policy.
Is the U.S. government and its surrogates, DOD, CIA, Joint Chiefs of Staff, CDC, DHHS, USDA, etc., carrying out the wicked depopulation agenda?
Well, based on my research, I would say absolutely. There's a memorandum 200 that Henry Kissinger sent to the government in the 70s that outlined many different strategies that they had to decrease the population of the world. And of course, the language talks about third world countries, but also talks about the poor and the needy. And I would say that as I continue to study the policies of CIA, the FDA, the CDC, NIH, all of these different arms, these organizations that are arms of the American government, it seems to me like they are absolutely implementing this plan that was put in that memorandum to a T.
Let us pause for announcements from our sponsors. Then we will bring NNV News contributor Nina Shabazz to share her interview with Justin Muhammad on moving to Zambia.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Your support helps us to highlight solutions for a brighter tomorrow. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.
This is Sister Sajida Muhammad. We are proud to announce that the Sajida House commemorative Elijah coins are finally here. This priceless heirloom, made from recycled copper from the messenger's home, is now available at sajidahouse.com.
The hashtag Bank Black social media campaign made strides not only in revolutionizing how we bank, but also how we think. The movement inspired thousands of African Americans across the country to transfer or deposit millions of dollars into Black-owned banks. These are banks that will invest in urban communities, employ African Americans, support Black businesses, and inspire Black home ownership. This is a very proud moment for our culture as we are taking small, but significant, steps towards building Black power through Black wealth.
Please share your thoughts with us in the comment section below. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel at National Network View. I am Anissa Muhammad with nnvnews.com.
Brother Justin Muhammad, who has just recently moved to Zambia from the UK, shared some of his thoughts, insights, and experiences into this journey. NNV News contributor Nina Shabazz had a chance to speak with our dear brother Justin in this pre-recorded interview. Joining us is our sister Nina Shabazz. Greetings, Nina.
Greetings. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. How about yourself?
I'm doing well.
That's great. That's great. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so I was going to say, there's a big movement to move back to Africa, and I thought it was, I thought it would be fitting, since we are doing kind of like a global perspective and what's going on in the world, to kind of talk to someone I've known for a while of, kind of their motivation to move to Africa. And so, one of my first questions that I asked him was, what kind of inspired him to, leave the Western world. He's from the United Kingdom and moved to Africa, out of the 56 countries. I just kind of wanted to get a, the thought from him, like, what was his inspiration behind packing up, all that he's known in the United Kingdom and moving to Zambia. And so these are kind of some of the thoughts that, he shared with me.
I guess it didn't start off as an inspiration to move to Africa, but it did definitely start as an inspiration to leave the UK. Originally, Minister Farrakhan had said in a press conference shortly after the assassination of Muammar Gaddafi that those of you who have left the Caribbean and Africa to be closer to your European masters, you've got 5 years to leave. And it's 5 years to leave or die there. And so that was on my mind, and I know it was over 5 years, and I didn't actually have a plan to leave, nor did many of the brothers and sisters around me who all knew they wanted to, but we didn't have a plan. So I was trying to come up with a cost-effective way for us to pool our resources and leave. I think everything that we had planned, or that our parents came to the United Kingdom to get, I think we've already got it. And now we seem to be going backwards and downhill. So that was the inspiration, a message from Minister Farrakhan. And then I guess secondary, but really the same thing, is just finding a place to practice the economic plan of the Honourable Elijah Muhammad, where we pool our resources and build for ourselves. So originally we tried to do it and we looked in the Caribbean. But the cost of land out there and just the cost of the whole project, we were still going to do it, but it was costing quite a bit and looked like it would take quite a while. Then I was told about some land in Zambia, which I didn't really take too seriously at first, but the price was undeniably more doable. And what you could do with £100,000 in Africa would take you probably 3 to 5 years to do in the Caribbean, with probably 5 times or even 10 times the money. So I was compelled to come. I traveled to Zambia, was here 3 days, absolutely loved it. And really, when I saw the opportunities, I was like, okay, this is the place. So that was the inspiration. And I think I just was, you know, I really had an overwhelming drive, like almost I felt pushed to come here from within. So I did. And it was everything that we needed to make the project start. And what we've been able to do in 2 years is I've just found it amazing. So, yeah, that was it. Pretty much that. Minister Farrakhan, teams with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and just wanting a better condition for myself and for my family and my children and my grandchildren.
Wow.
Yeah, and so I thought it was pretty deep. You know, most of us think about, you know, a lot of us are looking at legacy building. And you see kind of a similar movement with our brothers and sisters here in the States. You know, you see a lot more of our people getting to buying land, pooling their resources. There's groups on Facebook, Supreme Investors. They are a group of several hundred that are actually pulling their resources to buy land in order to, you know, essentially builds their own communities of like-minded individuals and that sort of thing, you know, to be able to police ourselves, to govern ourselves, to provide our own needs. And so, you know, I thought that was really poignant, a lot of the things that he was saying in terms of group economics. You know, and I know that a lot of our brothers and sisters are moving, you know, to the West Coast of Africa, out of the 56 countries. And so, you know, I kind of wanted to probe a little bit further in terms of why did he select Zambia out of the 56 countries to choose from, and you know, basically his thoughts were, you know, such as you'll see in the next clip. This is kind of what he shared with me.
Zambia is 3 times the size of the UK and has a quarter of the population. There's lots of space, lots of virgin land, and you can buy, as we did, somewhere in the nature of 250 hectares, which is like 550 acres for about $5,000. And that's really good producing land for that kind of money. I mean, sometimes the roads can be a bit problematic, and depending on where you buy, if you're buying in the city or whatever, it can be more expensive. But we've been able to make some really good deals. And it's just the price of getting started. Once we get the machinery out here, we've got quite a bit now, but once we started getting our machinery out, purchasing land, actually doing business in copper mining and whatnot, the cost of getting in, although it's high for me as an individual, as a group, it was really doable. The natural resources, there's so many: manganese, copper, timber, great land to grow crops, whether it's soybeans, maize, fruits, vegetables, bananas, and whatever. It's really great, and they've got a really high water table. So although it rains for like 4 months and then doesn't rain for the rest of the year, the amount of water that's under the ground makes it a really fertile place. So yeah, that's why Zambia. The opportunities were good and well priced.
Wow.
Yeah. So I know, you know, I hear that from so many different people who have moved there, just some of their experiences. You know, there's a woman, I believe she's out of Ethiopia. She runs a program basically telling you how to start like almost any business and how to maximize you know, making money in Africa. And you know, I know some of the sentiment with a lot of our brothers and sisters over there are, why won't our brothers and sisters from, you know, the West come over and share in these opportunities? Because as we can see, you know, the Chinese, the Indians from India are over there. You know, they're doing enterprise. They're bringing a lot of the infrastructure. And so, but with that, they bring their own workers as well. And so, you know, kind of, you know, the thought is, that why won't our brothers and sisters from the West come over and help us with our resources and sharing this wealth?
Yeah.
So so that's interesting that he said that. He said there's so many ways to make money there, but he also said that there's not. We shouldn't romanticize, going to Africa, because there's, like any place, there's struggles when you have, undeveloped land. And so, so I wanted to ask him kind of like, what are some of the biggest surprises or, things that he came up against when he moved over to Africa? And then, this is kind of what he shared with me.
Can't think of conveniences. The internet, I think, is less robust, and you do pay more for really good internet service. So that's probably the first thing I noticed. Biggest surprise, I guess, is just how little the Africans here actually know or understand about us. Yeah. So I'm constantly having to talk to people about the condition of blacks in the diaspora. And I think they're very au fait with colonialism, but in terms of post-traumatic slave syndrome, that's not something they really, they don't really understand what we've been through, but they understand their own, and the similarities allow us to conversate, but they really are, I guess that is, I thought they'd know more, but they don't. And then again, how little we really understand of theirs. So it's there's a long journey to be made for us to actually come back together. So I think that bit, in terms of our understanding of each other, I thought it would be easier than it is. And there's a lot of conversations, a lot of practice, and a lot of work to be done before we can really come together in harmony. So I guess that's the mission. That's what we're doing here now. So that's been surprising. Internet is maybe not the way I was used to it, but I'm getting used to it. And I mean, everything's there, it's just different. Pretty much that. And every time there's a difficulty or there's something that we're missing, we always look at it as an opportunity to fix something or to improve or even to develop a business around it. So nothing really, I guess, just our relationships and how much work it is to build good ones, like trustworthy good ones that we can work with. That's probably the most surprising thing about settling in here. But having said that, we're knocking it out and we are making some good connections.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, I think I think that it's worth having the conversation in terms of your expectations versus reality, because we all anticipate one set of things, and sometimes our expectations and the things that we anticipate don't necessarily align. And so I thought it was really interesting. The internet. A lot of times we take that for granted. Those of us who travel. Most of us from the West have certain expectations of conveniences. And so, it is one of those things that anywhere you go, you'll have to make adjustments and kind of make do. And like he said, there's a lot of business opportunities to improve upon processes and that sort of thing. And so I think that, there's a lesson to be learned there. So one of the last things I was asking him, I said, now that you know what you know, what would be a good piece of advice that you would tell someone that's looking to repatriate or locate or even visit Africa? And so this is kind of what he shared with me.
Don't go alone. I mean, I think a lot of people are doing, just a small family would set up and go. And I mean, I guess to some degree they're doing well, but Africa is actually, it's so rich and there's so much business and there's so many business opportunities that it takes large sums of money to compete with the Chinese, the Indians, the Lebanese or the Arabs who are here, the Europeans who are still here. And when we come as individuals, we aren't really in a position to compete. So you have a home, you buy groceries in the South African supermarket, but we're not in a position to lay out our own supermarkets. Most of the really nice cafes and restaurants and whatever, and not owned by indigenous Zambians. And I seem to remember the same when I was in Ghana, or the same in when I was in Gambia. So I don't know how all of Africa is, but most of the really modern looking malls and all of this stuff that show the development of Africa is in the hands of the Africans, and us coming one by one, just looking at how we relax in a holiday home with a car. I think that doesn't really allow us to compete in long term. If we don't do something about it, it'll end up being pretty much the same as it was where we came from, whether that's in the UK, Europe, or the States. So, main piece of advice, go in good groups, pool your resources, large sums of money, and get involved in major business. That would be my advice. Obviously, everybody does how they want to, but that would be my personal advice, is get involved in big business.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, I thought it was a valuable conversation. And that was his business is actually called Next Level Development. Great group of people, very generous with their time. And I think that, I think if you have an idea, the best thing to do is to get with like-minded individuals so that you can, who have a similar and who will adopt your vision. And, that you'll be able to pull your resources and work through to see that the vision is complete.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that was a wonderful and interesting dialogue. And I definitely want to thank you, Sister Nina, for sharing that with us today. And you have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you. Likewise.
Thank you. All right. Let us pause for announcements from our sponsors. And when we return, we'll get into the recent mass murderers in Georgia and what it means for the Black and Asian relationship. We'll be right back.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.
Thank you for tuning in to NNV News. Please share your thoughts with us in the comments section below. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel, National Network View. This is Clifton Muhammad with nnvnews.com.
Worldwide, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Download the Final Call Radio app and take us everywhere. On your phone, on your computer, on your tablet, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also log on to finalcall.com and click the Listen Live button, or finalcallradio.com. Final Call Radio, the official voice of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam.
This is Sister Sajda Muhammad. We are proud to announce that the Sajda House commemorative Elijah coins are finally here. As we renovate and restore the former home of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, we have recycled the old copper gutters and downspouts and created a 1 ounce 39mm coin made of 100% pure copper. Each coin is professionally graded and has its own barcode and registration number. This priceless heirloom, made from recycled copper from the messenger's home, is now available at sajdahouse.com.
As the numbers of incidents of hate crimes rise, research examines links between anti-Asian violence, white supremacy, racism, and domestic terrorism.
Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Green Greenwald cannot see the link between the Atlanta spa shootings, where a white man killed 8 Asian women, and white supremacy. I want us to take a look at what he had to say on Twitter before we set the record straight. The first thing he said on Twitter was the following, quote, "Has anyone provided an iota of evidence that what is driving this horrific surge of anti-Asian violence is, quote, white supremacist domestic terror? That would require data showing who is primarily perpetrating the violence and with what motive. Where is that? Now, he went ahead and dunked on liberals for speaking out against his ridiculous tweets. And this is what he shared. He said, quote, "Please look at how stupid and lowly so many liberals are now. If you ask for evidence to support sweeping but dubious claims about the cause of anti-Asian violence, they won't answer. Their brains won't allow that. Instead, they'll call you a racist. It's all they know how to do."
Joining the discussion is Sister Amina Lei. Greetings, my sister. How you doing today? Walaikum salam.
I'm good. Thank you for having me on here.
And thank you for joining us today and taking this time out to discuss this crazy topic that's going on today. And it's something that's been very heavy within our communities, and I'm glad you're able to come on today and give us your insight on that. So, why has there been limited coverage on the solidarity within communities of color even before COVID?
I think we have to think about who owns the media, who controls the narrative, and who benefits from our division, or who benefits from the lack of information, education about both of our communities. The lack of news of the current solidarity movement and historical solidarity movements creates the further division between our communities and really allows the hidden hand of our common enemy.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's very interesting because, we definitely want to know, like, how has this myth of model minority further disenfranchised communities that were already marginalized? And why hasn't this theory been debunked by the academic community who perpetrated it?
I mentioned before earlier this week in an interview, during the 60s, the Black and Asian community had a good relationship. Right. There was the Black Panther Party working with the Red Guard Party, who is a Chinese American youth fighting for justice, equal housing rights, healthcare in the Chinatown community. They were working together to fight injustices. Huey P. Newton invited to China, or how about Mao Zedong writing a 14-page letter to the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad supporting the Black Power movement, Third World Liberation Front. So the Third World Liberation Front was Black students, Latin students, Asian students coming together to fight for ethnic studies in our school. So there was a relationship that was building. Unfortunately, our common enemy created the model minority myth, to create this wedge between the Asian and Black community. With this model minority myth, it creates the good minority, or the minority that is hardworking, does not protest, is quiet, passive, submissive. And so with the good minority is automatically a bad minority that's protesting, that is fighting back. So this wedge continues on to this day. But the model minority myth also erases the real struggles of even within the Asian community.
Yeah. Wow. I never thought about it like that. The good minority stigma versus the bad minority stigma. And that's a very interesting perspective that you gave to us there. And, how has the surge in anti-Asian violence affected the call to defund militarized police?
When I went to the rally in Oakland, when the news first hit that there are increased violence in the Asian community, specifically Chinatown, with our Asian elders, I went to the first rally in Oakland, and many of the Asian community leaders are calling out being against more law enforcement in our community, because we recognize that is not the solution. that is tied to a system that harms our Black and brown sisters. The law enforcement is the same, or is connected to the same system that that we face in the Asian community. For example, recently, Angelo Quinto, a Filipino victim that was killed by police. Christian Hall, 19-year-old Chinese teenager that was experiencing mental health episode with his hands up, was shot and killed. And that's not getting much media attention. So the same police system that harms our Black and brown sister also harms us as well. The brutal investigation, the abuse that massage parlors receive, or Asian workers, service workers, that receives police brutality as well. So we don't, as far as I know, what I've seen on the ground, Asian community leaders are not wanting more police.
Right. No, absolutely.
Well, that is a controversial issue. There's been different viewpoints on that, but there's a growing movement amongst the Asian community leaders that are against more police presence.
Absolutely. And, rightfully so. We need more evidence of police actually serving us as the community and less harm towards us as a community. And so, in the past years, political leaders have labeled the coronavirus a Chinese flu and Kung flu, called for building walls to prevent Mexican migrants from entering the U.S., responded to Black players protesting police brutality by saying, "Get these sons of bees off the field." Has this type of rhetoric and discourse led to an atmosphere of increased racial tension and violence against Asians, Pacific Islanders, Blacks, and Mexicans?
Absolutely. And, this type of rhetoric is nothing new. It is ingrained in American history, rooted in the Chinese Exclusion Act, the Yellow Peril movement, where Chinese immigrants are seen as the other or the foreigner, that are diseased, that are sick, that are dirty, and that are not integrated well into this society. So it's just bringing up the old tricks, as the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, the technology of our common enemy, to paint this picture that we are the Kung flu or the Chinese virus. Then the attacks on the Asians, and we are standing up against these injustices, but then the media divides that further divides the tension between different communities. So what is being reported? There's reports that a young Black perpetrator that killed Bika, the elderly Thai man in San Francisco, but there are other incidents and attacks from white perpetrators. The media is going to create this narrative that the Black community must now be an ally, or there was I believe it was Dateline, that interviewed the victim's son-in-law, who was Caucasian, and he spoke, in my opinion, wrongly. He spoke wrongly on behalf of the Asian community, saying that Blacks need to tell their communities to stop hurt Asian people. And that's not the right statement. And from there, things were spiraling for the worse, where now there's this question of solidarity that, has Asians stood up for Blacks, or, what does solidarity look like? So there's this controversial issue, but that now erases the current movement of solidarity and historical solidarity. But again, the media and our education system is not going to show that.
Right. That is true. And, that goes back to the hidden hand that you spoke about. And it further like you said, divides us whenever these conversations come into play. And so, just pulling from that, are the discussions that center around whether Blacks and Asians are unified really steering us away from the real issue of racism and white supremacy? Is the discussion letting the oppressors off the hook?
I believe so. I think the narrative of, can Blacks be a true ally to Asian American community? I think that it takes away from how white supremacy is wanting us to focus on the unhealed wounds between the two communities. And so we're focusing on that, but we're not seeing, again, there are Asian Americans that are showing up for Black Power movements or standing up against white supremacy, but that's not being shown. Or what about, when George Floyd happened, there were marches in Korea, in Japan, for supporting the Black Lives movement. So I think that, the unhealed wounds, that's what's coming up to surface. But we also need to understand that there are movements of wanting to truly heal. And can we have a true conversation? Can we actually have these uncomfortable conversation and speak about, yes, there's anti-Blackness in the Asian community. However, there are leaders and organizations that are creating pamphlets, and translating the pamphlets into Vietnamese, into Chinese, into Japanese, into Korean, on how can our generation speak to our elders about anti-Blackness. So there's real movements that are happening, or the media singling out certain incidents where there were Black perpetrators that did rob or harm an Asian elder, and blowing that issue up and then saying, now we're pitting against each other. But they're really good, positive movements that are going on, and we have to be careful about generalizations.
Absolutely.
And hopefully we can have a conversation that can allow us to better understand our communities.
Absolutely. I definitely believe that that day will come. We'll definitely be able to have those conversations and come together as two communities and unify as one. And just pulling from what you said makes you think about, like, why is the Justice Department so hesitant to call the killing of Asians in Atlanta a hate crime? Why would his actions not be a hate crime regardless of whether there were other factors that existed? Like, for example, why would police minimize the gunman's actions, saying he had a bad day or that it was a sexual crime? Why would a gunman who killed several people not be classified a domestic terrorist?
Because it takes the focus away from systemic violence. It takes away the focus from domestic terrorism committed by white men. Asian Americans have long experienced systemic, institutional, interpersonal violence. It has occurred through colonial, imperialistic wars, xenophobic immigration policies, ICE detention, deportation, policing and criminalization, gentrification, or even our elderly Chinese folks being displaced right now. It takes also the same system of our government failing during the pandemic, failing the most marginalized communities. So for him to just have a bad day, really takes the focus away from the real problem.
Absolutely. And we see that happen time and time again, where they like to take the focus away from what the actual issue is. Going back to when you mentioned about the hidden hand, that's a very vital, important statement that you made there, because it's very important to what's going on within our communities. And I definitely have to thank you for giving your such a well-educated and interesting perspective on the topic at hand today. And thank you for taking the time out to, give us that information today on NNV News. And I just want to greet you or leave you with peace as you have the rest of your evening.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I could say this last statement.
Absolutely.
I came into the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and he said that the population of the original nation is 4,400,000,000. And I hope in this very crucial time that we as Muslims, we do our duty to stand up against any injustices and oppression of all forms. And as a Chinese Muslim in the nation, I strive to continue to educate and follow the teachings closely at this time, and to hopefully have those conversations within our communities. So thank you for having me. It's a true honor.
Thank you. And it was a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you. All right. That was wonderful. A wonderful conversation there. And let us take a moment and pause for some announcements from our sponsors. And, today was just been a great conversation, but I'm going to take a moment to pause for our sponsors, and then we'll be closing out the show.
Greetings from National Network View. This week's Final Call cover story headline reads, "Injustice yesterday, no justice today." After many high-profile cases, blank political statements are made. Public tears, street protests, and cries of outrage are expressed, but no one goes to jail. From George Floyd to Emmett Till, after the pleas and promises, black people still get little to no justice. The question is, why? What have we learned? And can this injustice system ever change? Page 3 of the Final Call covers the full story. This FCN Volume Number 25 edition features the middle page article by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. The message is entitled, "Justice, a Prerequisite to Life." To read more, subscribe to finalcalldigital.com and tune in to the all-new Final Call Radio. This is the nnvnews.com Final Call cover report.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.
Thank you for joining us today and tuning in to NNV News. Please share your thoughts with us in the comment section below. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel, National Network View. This is Tariq X with National Network View News. Peace.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.